So thank you to Karen Brown, President of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, for coming on today to talk about the documentation that the Minister of Education seems to have had, that there's a potential to see uh, basically disruptions in the teacher workforce, and I guess our student teacher ratios coming if action isn't properly taken. I thank you to Karen Brown for coming on to talk about this important topic with us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
So let's start off with uh, get it right into it. The Ministry of Education stated that there's in their words, a looming teacher shortage coming, and frankly, that we are expecting more children to enroll in Ontario schools than we have the teachers available to teach them. This is their words. And there's a global news article there. We read this in. That's why we're having you on here. You stated that you don't think it's due to a lack of teachers, but rather a lack of appeal to be in the classroom. And I'm wondering, can you maybe elaborate on that point for our listeners?
Absolutely. There isn't a shortage of teachers. We know that there are 39,000 people in the province of Ontario who are qualified, who have their Ontario College of Teachers certificate, who could be in these classrooms. What we have is a shortage of good working conditions. There is a staffing crisis is facing the school boards because the government refuses to address the challenges that are facing our members, and these are terrible learning conditions and working conditions for our members at this particular time. And I'm glad this document is coming to the surface. It's indicating in 2027. We're saying that is happening right now. And we have been saying that the conditions are deteriorating in schools in regards to the learning conditions of students and the working conditions of our members.
When we had you on previously about, I'm going to ballpark this, say about a year ago, that episode that we had you on was to focus on the issue of violence in Ontario schools. Primarily the fact that teachers feel that they're not, their workplace is no longer as safe as it should be in regards to student on teacher violence. Since that episode aired about a year ago, have you noticed the issue getting better or worse for your members?
Yeah. Our members say the issues continues to increase. There haven't seen any improvements and changes in regards to the level of violence, and that's also contributing to this factor, this staffing issue, because what we're seeing for new graduates and occasional teachers who are dealing with precarious and poorly paid work, they're not taking up these assignments anymore. So they're not taking up the assignments if someone is sick or having to go on a mat leave or another type of leave. The graduates should be scooping up. The government introduced what's called the transitional teaching certificate, which would allow student teachers, while they're in the faculty, while they're getting their teaching certificate, to actually work. And they're not picking up those assignments in the afternoon. So they're doing their practicum in the morning. A grade 3 or grade 4 class becomes available. They're not stepping into those positions because of the lack of violence, because of the violence, because of the lack of supports for students of special ed and the supports for them. They're being just downloaded with curriculum without any time and opportunity to teach. And these factors are a continuing factors. We see the violence, as you mentioned before. I'm saying it continues to exist because we still have those long wait lists for students who have not been identified, who are not getting the proper assessments, are being frustrated and are acting out within the classrooms. So it's a vicious cycle, and it begins because what we've seen over the last 6 years is really a deliberate and intentional neglect of underfunding the public education system by the Ford government.
I just want to jump in, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a moment. I think everybody listening to this podcast knows that these kind of points aren't necessarily mine, but they're points that get raised commonly, perhaps by some of the people supporters of the current government in particular. I don't know, but you mentioned the phrase you used was terrible working conditions. And I guess the point that people make is, well, don't teachers have, they've got your gold-plated pensions, you've got your, you get months off over the summer, all the old cliches, so to speak. You come home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. what are you complaining about? I mean, surely you've got a much better deal than most people in the workforce. How do you answer that? I mean, I guess part of the answer is, well, look, we can't find people who want to do this job, or who want to stay doing the job. But how do you respond to that in the context of this apparent difficulty getting people to actually want to stay in the classroom?
Yeah. And I think like in any profession where we negotiate good working conditions, I think everyone wants to work in an environment where there are good working conditions, where you've got good benefits. So I think everyone should be first of all happy with that. I don't think they want anyone living below the standards based on the level of education, the amount of time in order to get your teaching qualifications. But what we're talking about here is public education, and everyone should be invested in public education and what public education looks like and what schools looks like, because it has a long-term trickling effect on society in general. So if we are not investing in the system, and I'm talking about the learning conditions of your students. When I talk about the students, I'm talking about your nephew, your niece, your neighbor's child, maybe someone that you know, your grandchild. These are the children that we're talking about that are witnessing violence on a daily basis. This is violence becoming normalized in the classroom. We're talking about class sizes that are booming at the seams, where you have 25, 30 kids, 35 kids in a classroom. So learning is actually being disrupted, and it's being very difficult for the average child to thrive in those environments. And that should be concern for everyone, because if these students aren't have their needs met, they're going to be the ones that eventually will be frustrated with school as they fall further and further behind. They'll drop out in high school, become part of a system where whether it's prison, whether it's mental health issues that they're not able to cope or whatever. These are issues that will impact us in the long term if we don't invest now. So it should be a concern, because if you're not paying for it now, we're paying for it on the long end. So when we're talking about working conditions, I'm not talking about benefits and things that we're negotiating. I'm talking about conditions of work within the classroom, how it impacts how our members are able to interact with students, how they're able to provide the quality of learning that they want to see and that everyone want to see children in Ontario reach to, which they're having a difficulty. And so those are the factors that we're talking about. And when I talk about deliberate neglect and underfunding, I'm talking about $1,500 per pupil funding has been cut per pupil out of this education system. And that's an enormous amount. Think about if every child had an additional $1,500 invested within them to provide supports per child in a school, what schools can do. So those are some of the key things when we're talking about the impact of these deliberate cuts.
I want
I just want to follow up on that,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the teachers I know feel well. It's a couple of things that I've noticed just in the last few years from speaking to some teachers, and there's a couple of separate processes. First, sort of being undermined by the province to me, and just in terms of basic dollars, like you mentioned, and then also what seems to me to be almost the frontline teachers are they're almost at the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, where the teachers who are actually in the classrooms don't get the support from the school boards that it seems that they often should do. Just speaking about Halton, I know that Halton basically has done away with textbooks. Like, textbooks are not seen as something that teachers should be using anymore. And it's like, well, that's all very nice, but that's putting a huge burden on teachers to sort of produce work that used to come, they used to be able to sort of use textbooks for. I think I certainly grew up in that kind of environment. So just books aren't necessarily a thing anymore. Now, I may be describing things unfairly, but it seems to be this sort of, teachers are having more and more tools taken away from them, either in terms of teaching tools or in terms of the sort of tools that they can use to maintain order in the classroom and to control children so that they're not violent. And in that environment, it seems totally natural that you then get a large number of teachers who are either thinking, can I take early retirement? Can I go into a different career? Or can I get a job at the school board office where I don't actually have to be in the class? And all three of those seem to be things that are features of kind of what's happening right now. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, I mean, coming into the teaching profession, people are much more qualified than they were, 10, 15 years. The average teachers probably has a master's degree. They've got taken additional qualifications in specialist areas. And so they can look at other jobs and say, I can find something that will pay me probably equal or better without the stress, without the anxiety, and I'll get a lot of support. I'm not expected to learn curriculum on my own time, deliver it, assess it, and evaluate it without any support, then being criticized on how it's delivered when you didn't properly train me, you didn't provide any training. You said, go online and figure it out. And then you say, oh, our kids are failing here, but you're not providing the coaching and support for our newer members. We're finding that teachers the first 5 years are leaving the profession in mass droves. And that is because there's a lack of mentorship, a lack of rolling it out without giving them the tools they need to succeed.
Um,
Wow. Those are the things people are not seeing it attractive. You talk the summers, or we're not paid in the summer. So that's not, the summers, there are the holiday breaks. We're not paid for those breaks either. But there are some things that, yeah, those are nice times to have off, but that they're not nice enough to attract people to come in. There's a shortage. So you have to think about it. As lovely as everyone sees and says, then why is there right now a crisis looming? It's because there are poor working conditions. People need to feel respected and valued and want to go into a work environment where they know they'll be the proper tools to do a good job. And that's it. That's something we're seeing lacking from this government.
on that note, I kind of want to take a maybe to pivot and maybe look to the future a bit on this, and I want to get your take on. We're seeing a cut, as you said, we're seeing a cutting of real dollars per pupil from the education system for students, and we're seeing kind of a lack of attention to making sure that teachers have the proper tools and resources to execute their profession properly. And I'm wondering what what is your concern about the end goal of this government? What do you think the government's uh, uh, purpose is in doing this, and what are your concerns about that for Ontario schools?
Well, our concern is this: we have a government that doesn't seem to want to value public education. They're a government that's looking towards private sector and really pushing people towards privatizing education. We're seeing a government that is really taking funds out of public education. What we saw during COVID was a government that took money out of the system and offered for parents to do tutoring after school, as opposed to put that money deliberately within the system during the school day, where every child had equal access to get those supports, to utilize those supports. We saw money given to parents, $200 to do whatever you want, pulled out of the system once again, as opposed to in. So we're seeing, when I say a deliberate and chronic neglect, these are some specific examples that we saw with this government. And what we're seeing is that they're deliberately trying to undermine public education. We know that they're open for big business. They've been, pushing towards many privatized things, whether it's looking at beer, whether it's moving the science center where, educators were using those tools downtown. It's a real concern in regards to what the people of Ontario expect from a government to look at a education, which is a great equalizer, where a government is consistently not trying to address that. We see approximately 16 billion in our public schools underfunded. There's a backlog with school repairs, and so we need to ask why is this happening? And I think it's a deliberate attempt. It's a deliberate attempt to make the system look bad, and so that people will pull themselves out of the system. It's unacceptable. We need the government to step up and prioritize public education.
Are you worried about Ontario maybe going down the path that we've seen in the States with many conservative states that the basically that kind of full tilt into the charter school system by that parents are just given a lump sum of money for your kid and you shop around essentially to find the school that best fits your child's needs, which at best I think results in mixed results of definitely an unequal outcome in terms of education standards across the United States. Is that something you're afraid of seeing replicated here in Ontario?
Absolutely. Charter schools, we see that happening already in certain parts of Canada where they are given public dollars and they can take that public dollar and they can go to private schools, religious schools, other schools. That money is pulled out of the system. So absolutely, we saw that earlier on the Harris Airs where they tried to offer money for that. So it's something that could resurface. We know that the ministers talk, and that's something that we need to look at. We need to look at the overreaching of this government with school boards, in regards to how they're influencing and restricting the role of public trustees that were elected, much more hands-on, the government in getting in there. And we have to wonder how much of that system are they chipping away at little by little, where, like you said, it might sort of look like it does south of the border, where we don't have elected individuals, where it's maybe the school councils now hiring and in charge of all those things. And so we don't have that quality of education across the province that's consistent. And that's the beauty of education in Canada. No matter where your child goes to school, they're getting the same quality. They don't have to be in an affluent neighborhood to get a good quality of education. You're not having to drive hundreds of miles. You're not having to try to move your postal code to get good quality education. So those are some of the factors, absolutely, that we're concerned about.
It's so disappointing, isn't it? I mean, it seems that public education is something that the Western world did well for decades on end, and for some reason, certain people of certain political perspective decided that no, this is not something that we want anymore, and rather than come out and openly say what they're doing, it's sort of death by a thousand cuts.
Absolutely.
And really, I mean, my impression, sort of speaking from teachers, is really of a system that is already in crisis, where just the ability to do the basic job of instruction is incredibly difficult to achieve. Where the exhaustion of just trying to do the basics, which always makes the sort of the arguments about teachers are trying to indoctrinate children with things like trans issues and all this stuff, so kind of hilarious, because the teacher's like, we just want to teach, we just want to get through the day without being assaulted. We want to see children who are misbehaving kind of held to account and have the tools to make sure that those children's behavior is corrected, rather than finding that you're questioned by administrators, or that you don't have the special education teachers available to you to sort of dedicate to children with serious challenges. We're already in this crisis. I mean, other than doing what you're doing, which is sort of raising awareness, I mean, what can be done to kind of really make people more aware of the level of problems that we're already facing?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I mean, we are doing our lobbying. We have our Building Better Schools website, and you can go on to our Building Better Schools, and it'll actually type in your child's school, your grandchild's school, any school, and you'll actually see how much money has been taken out of the education system since 2018, I believe. And so we're raising awareness. We've got some social media ads and campaigns. We're going to be putting on some political pressure. We're mobilizing and engaging our members that education is political, that the government that is elected really will determine their working conditions and children's learning conditions. And as you mentioned, the level of stress that our members are under is enormous. The level of fatigue, because they just want to try and do the right job. to hearing the rhetoric and the distractions about when our members are trying to create safe and inclusive classrooms for all children. So whether it's trans children, Indigenous children, racialized children, all children deserve to work and deserve to be in a learning environment where they can thrive. And that requires some education. So no, our members don't indoctrinate anyone. We deliver the curriculum, but we try to create safe and inclusive environment. Whether they're immigrant children who have different names that are sounding funny to some people, it's the same thing in regards to trans students don't want to be misidentified. We can connect in our similarities of feeling like the outsider, of feeling different, and that's what educators do, and that's what they want to do. They want to be able to focus on getting their students at the level where they need to be, so they can move on, that they can thrive and be successful. What we're seeing is that really is a government that is distracting us from the real issues, not providing the supports. And when I talk about supports, I'm talking about the child and youth care workers. We're talking about the psychologists for testing, the social workers to support families in transitions. We talked about, you mentioned, the violent students or the student who's unable to focus. Where are the guidance counselors that used to be there that you can work with them in small groups? All these resources have been pulled from the system. And with a large class size, teachers don't have the time to focus on those students and to create those small class needs that's happening. And so this is part of the problem that we're facing. Thus we're going to be doing our work and lobbying to really make some changes that are not just impacting our members, but are impacting students across the province.
Well, I mean, I very much hope you succeed in that. I mean, I really think that it's incredibly important, and it's incredibly important. Not I mean, obviously you represent teachers, but it's incredibly important for the children ultimately that their education is being impacted by this. Their entire lives are being impacted by this. If a teacher is exhausted and is sort of battling to control the classroom, where there are students who don't have the proper supports in terms of special education teachers or EAs and so on and so forth, then it tends to be the sort of the average student, so to speak, are the ones who miss out in some ways because the teacher can't give them the attention that they need to have. Their attention is kind of eaten up by the students with challenges, as it should be in some ways. But when you have that those lack of resources, it's every student who's going to sort of suffer as a result. And it really seems that our strength as a province is and as a country is in the quality of our education, and so to underfund and to undermine teachers and students in this way is so destructive. It's really infuriating to have to see on a regular basis.
Before we sign off, Karen, I do want to ask you. It appears that we're going to be heading into an election next year, and I'm curious to know: is EDFO? I can't speak for the other teachers unions, obviously, but is EDFO making plans to make your side known in this whenever this election happens, most likely in 2025?
What I can say is that our members are really desperate for change. They're ready for a government that cares about public education and is going to make the necessary investments to ensure that Ontario students get high quality, inclusive public education they deserve. We have been talking to all parties that are willing to listen at our annual meeting in August. We invited all the leaders of the parties to come. So the Liberal Party leader came, the NDP Party leader came. We are presenting our platform in regards to what we feel quality public education should look like. And right now we're saying to our members, you need to be listening to who has included some of our feedback as key stakeholders in education. as someone who, as an organization that knows what students and our members need for that education system to thrive. And so we're encouraging our members to look at that and to invest in to at this point, looking at a party that is willing to make those changes. And are we endorsing one particular party? I think we have done that in the past. That is not our plan this time. I can say that we're looking at who is going to be providing a sound investment around public education, and we'll strategize on how we make that happen. And sometimes it might be riding by riding. I won't get into all those details. But our membership can change and say something different. It's still early at this time, but we're looking at who will provide what our members are asking for. And right now they're asking for change. They want support. When we're talking about, I said, the resources that they need, the increase in violence in schools it's reached a breaking point. And our members saying we need support now, and students need that support. So we're prepared to work with anybody who wants to make those real investments and those real changes.
Well, thank you very much for that. And we wish you and your members the best of luck in the fight ahead. But I'll leave it at that. Karen, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast today and from taking time for your busy schedule. Thank you very much. It's appreciated.
Great. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye.